So, there have been a lot of games that have been released over the years. A lot of amazing titles that I personally haven't gotten a chance to play, and neither has my friend. With that being said, a little too late. Final Fantasy VII Remake. Let's talk about it. Alright, right off the bat, I personally really did like Final Fantasy VII Remake. I had certain issues with the ending, or not even the ending, the last few chapters leading up to the ending. For me personally, almost killed the game for me.
You see, I will agree with you there because I got to the same situation where I played through the beginning, loved the way they built up the game, loved like getting involved with the characters, seeing more of their backstory. But then getting to those last bit chapters where it almost felt as if the game was like a chore to me.
Specifically, Chapter 15. I know exactly what you're talking about. Chapter 15, before you go to Shinra Tower, oh my lord. All of the stupid side quests that you need to do before you go to Shinra Tower. Well, you don't necessarily need to do them, but if you don't do them in Chapter 15, you won't be able to do them again until you beat the game. They are some of the most irritating side quests I have ever been a part of. Almost every single side quest has been nothing but fetch quests. Go over here, find these music tracks, kill these specific enemies. Insanely boring padding that almost killed the game for me. And it wasn't until I had reached chapter 18, I think, Destiny's Crossroads, where that fire started back up for me, and I was hyped because obviously certain bosses that you had to fight. Cinematics were amazing.
While we're on the topic of boss fights, one fight that really just got my attention, like really got me pumped up. It's the weirdest fight too. It's when you're in the Coliseum, you're fighting all these different enemies. You're going through each stage, progressing with Aerith, and you get to like what seems to be the final boss, and it's a freaking house monster.
Oh, I know exactly which one you're talking about. Where you have to try to convince all of Don Corneo's confidants or whatever to approve you.
Exactly. It, it,
Yeah.
it, it caught me completely off guard. Hero was expecting, to fight this really intense looking monster, and all I see is a freaking house.
Well, the thing about the house is that it was in the original Final Fantasy VII as well. That exact monster. You ended up fighting it somewhere in the Sector 7 playground or something around that nature. And it's just a house, and every time it would eat you up, something bad would happen, and you lose almost all your health. So that monster was always there, actually. For me, personally, one monster, if we're talking about monsters or bosses that caught us by surprise that we actually liked, one boss for me would have to have been on Chapter 17, where you have to fight this mechanical fish thing. And
Oh,
the boss itself wasn't that cool, but I really liked how the boss, you initially start off the fight with Cloud and Barrett, and once you get him to around half health, they end up kicking him towards Tifa and Aerith. And I love how you just had to fight as everyone to beat this fish monster thing.
yeah, that was a really cool mechanic.
Yeah, they really did add a couple of new characters and features in this game, because I know you never beat the original Final Fantasy VII,
No.
but this one specifically takes place only in Midgar, which is, to my understanding, was only disc 1 in the original Final Fantasy VII out of 3 discs. So that was pretty insane. They added more backstory or character development for Don Corneo, his bodyguard Leslie out of nowhere. He has backstory now. They added a new soldier that Cloud has to fight that's now obsessed with him. You remember the bike chase?
His
And
name was Roach, I believe.
Roach or something along that nature.
The really cool motorcycle scene.
Yeah, the guy that was obsessed with
Yeah.
fighting Cloud once they had that highway fight. They added a bunch of different things, but one thing I thought was really interesting was how they flipped the script for Final Fantasy VII Remake. In Final Fantasy VII Remake, it is actually a remake, not just in the sense of aesthetics, but story as well. The whole point of this version of Final Fantasy VII is that they are going against fate and rewriting the script or the future of how this game is going to be presented, which I thought was crazy. What were you going to say?
No, I was just going to agree with you, which I thought was actually really genius. Instead of doing another remastered, which we're seeing a lot of nowadays, remastered Call of Duty, remastered Tomb Raider, like games along that sense, just remastered. This is a complete retelling of the story.
Yeah, and I remember speaking to you before this about Zach Fair. Do you remember him?
I still do not know his story.
So, oh my god, he is one of my favorite Final Fantasy characters. In fact, it was his game that first introduced me to the whole Final Fantasy franchise. Final Fantasy VII Crisis Core. That was the first Final Fantasy game I ever played, and it was on the PSP. I loved that game. And Zach Fair, I mean, I could go into a whole section of just explaining his backstory. I won't. But pretty much that last chapter where you see him standing right outside of Midgar and fighting all those Shinra soldiers, you know what I'm talking about?
Yeah.
So the reason why that scene was so important was because Zack was actually supposed to die there.
That makes a lot of sense, because the way they set it up, it seemed like, this was his final stand. And then he was surprised at the end, like, I'm still standing?
Yeah, he was like, wait, is that all of them? And it was just the biggest mind fuck for me, because in Crisis Core, they spent so much time detailing it on this little screen, the PSP, of him dying, just laying on the ground while it's raining and the blood just dripping down his face while he's trying to remember Aerith. And that was one of the few times I was legitimately sad by a game. But in this one, with the remake, because Cloud and his gang all went against fate and fought the Whispers, they sort of rewrote the script, and now Zack is apparently alive, or is alive in some other reality, and is bringing Cloud to Midgar. So I thought that was insanely cool. One thing that kind of annoyed me, I'm not sure if a lot of other people would be annoyed by this, but Red 13.
What about him?
I hated the fact. Sorry, let me rephrase. I understand why they designed it like that, just because he didn't have a lot of screen time. He was only there for the last 2 chapters of the game. But I hated the fact that I could not actually play as him. He was only a guest character.
Yes.
I understand. I completely understand why they did it in that way, making him a guest character. Makes total sense. He's only there for 2 chapters. What would be the point of giving him equipment, a level up system? There's no reason. A guest character. Makes total sense. But I really hate the fact that I couldn't switch to him in the middle of fights and just play as Red 13.
Yes, even though they had him fighting alongside with you.
Well, they wanted to make it feel more authentic to the original version, because in the original version, you got to play as Red 13 and he fought you alongside you. They wanted to make it feel similar to the original, but I totally understand why they didn't let you play as him, because there wouldn't be enough time to give him character development in the sense of leveling up his abilities. There wasn't enough time. They're only doing the Midgar section of Final Fantasy VII, so it makes sense. But I'm more upset with the fact that I just couldn't play as him.
No, I totally understand where you're coming from there, because he was one of my favorite characters to use when I played the original version.
All I know is no one ever used Kate Sith in the original Final Fantasy VII. No, because it was just like, really? Why? You're just a cat on top of a plush doll thing. It was so dumb. Another thing that really annoyed me, in the original Final Fantasy VII, one fight that I absolutely loved was when the whole team gets to the top of Shinra Tower, and then Cloud separates with Barrett, Aerith, and Red 13. Barrett and Aerith and Red 13, they go to the elevator.
Yeah.
They have that really intense boss fight with the tank, that mechanical tank that's on the other elevator.
Bots.
Yeah. That's on the other side of the elevator. And they have this intense fight while the elevators are going down In the remake, they just made that a quick cutscene, and then you just fight the tank at the base floor of Shinra Tower. I hated that because I loved how intense it felt in the original version, having to just try to survive inside this tiny elevator while this tank is just hailing you with missiles.
Speaking of that fight, that was probably one of my least favorites
The tank fight in the remake or the original?
in the remake.
Yeah, in the remake, because it looked visually stunning,
Mhm.
but there was no feeling of urgency. You just had this giant open field to just hide behind rubble whenever he shot at you.
It felt very taxing to me.
Did it? Were you
Like,
aiming at his shield?
I was, and I think that the main problem I had was my Barrett wasn't properly like leveled to the point where it took me a long time just to kill the drones. So
Oh, I
that
see.
fight took me a bit, and literally before that fight, I had just fought another boss, so it just felt like I would have been more hyped if there was like a little breather in between those fights. But like it happened right after, so I'm just like, okay, good, another fight. All right, let's get this over with.
No, the tank fight in the remake I didn't really enjoy that much compared to the original version. But one fight I thought was fleshed out a bit better, since we were on the topic of Cloud separating from Barrett and the others. Cloud versus Rufus.
Oh man.
I thought that was really cool because, again, in the original version, Rufus had skill, but it was never properly represented in that turn-based mechanic system how much skill he had. Specifically, when I first fought Rufus Shinra in the remake, he kept countering almost all of my attacks over and over and over again, to the point where I was like, are you really this powerful? Did I not know this? How are you countering all of my attacks? How are you using a gun more efficiently than Squall and his gunblade?
Hey, now let's not bring Squall into this.
Literally, no, that's exactly what I was thinking during that fight. Because Shinra, he would just shoot the ground and you'd see him fly across the helipad and just fly and just counter everything you do with your giant sword. And I'm just thinking to myself, wow, someone needs to tell Squall how to do this. Oh my God, Rufus is insane. The only thing I didn't like, and I know for a fact that you loved about him, I didn't like his apparel.
Oh man, what's not to like?
I think personally, maybe I'm more of a fan of how how his design looked in the original, but I did not envision him to have pants like that.
See, to me, I really liked his apparel because being a fan of anime, it just screamed out anime to me, and I'm like, yes, I like this outfit. I think he pulls it off really well, especially with how the fight was going on. You see all the tassels he has, all the little chains like going everywhere. I'm like, this is really cool.
Yeah, see, that's the problem. All the tassels and all those little chains, for me personally, it felt excessively childish. It almost felt like an anime mullet. Business up top with the suit, and then a weird gothic party at the bottom with his pants. That's what it felt like. An anime mullet. That is the best way I can describe it, and I was not into it.
That is probably the best representation I can get from that.
That's that's literally what it was. It was an anime mullet.
I will say this though, all that aside, like the cinematics when you're fighting him are really, really cool. Especially when he like flips the coins up and shoots them and does like this really cool like
that made
type effect.
Oh my God, when I saw that, I had to pause the game because I was trying to make sense of what had just happened. I see him throw 2 quarters up in the air. He shoots them, and then lasers come out of them. And I'm just sitting here with my chunky sword, thinking to myself, what in the hell am I supposed to do with that? I have a block of metal. He's got quarters that shoot lasers.
Don't get hit by it. That's the thing you're
What? I mean, I didn't. But I was still flabbergasted by it. Just what in the actual fuck is up with this guy? He's stronger than most soldiers, which makes no sense because soldiers were designed to be top tier warriors.
And for him to just pretty much keep his own, if not just like really toy around with Cloud was like really saying something.
No, he straight up. Well, again, another thing. Spoilers. Cloud is not actually a soldier. We know this.
Well, I know this now.
Oh, did you not know this?
I did not know this.
Oh, well.
Because I don't think they explain it in. I think I got as far as this 2 in the original.
Oh, you. Okay. Yeah, you barely played Final Fantasy VII then.
Right.
But, yeah. Cloud is not necessarily soldier. He's more of a. Let's phrase it like this. He's an experiment. But he's a powerful experiment.
Huh.
And so Rufus Shinra, honestly, sorry, even before we're talking about Rufus Shinra, they make it very painfully clear Cloud is not a soldier throughout the remake. There are several, if you paid attention, there are several moments where they straight up say, "Oh, you're not soldier. Oh, wait, I've never even heard of you." President Shinra, Dr. Hojo, even Rufus has made a comment. The Turks even made a comment. I think it was either Reno or Rude, maybe Sung.
I believe it was Reno when you first fight him.
Yeah, they all take nods saying, "Oh, you're not actually soldiers." So Miguel, I think that's on you if you didn't notice.
No. There was one soldier when you're infiltrating Shinra Tower to save Aerith. There's 2 soldiers that are walking by and they notice your group and they're about to do something. When one recognizes Cloud.
Okay, I'm going to stop you right there because those were Shinra soldiers, not soldiers.
Oh, okay.
There's a big difference between a Shinra soldier and an actual soldier.
Okay.
Soldiers are infused with Mako energy to become heightened warriors. Shinra soldiers are just essentially bodyguards. And in fact, thank you for bringing that up. That is another nod to knowing that Cloud is not actually a soldier because Shinra bodyguards recognized him because he was part of their training program. Right. Meaning, Cloud was never a soldier, he was a Shinra bodyguard.
Dang.
So congratulations, you played yourself. Good job, buddy.
Well, I mean, I've only played the original so much, and then going into this one, it was just a complete new experience to me. One thing I will say I really liked were how they kept certain aspects of the original in the remake, with one of the scenes being when you're in Shinra Tower and you're climbing all those flights of stairs. I liked in the original how it was just a cinematic more than anything, but in this one they force you to literally walk up every single flight of stairs.
In the original, it wasn't a cinematic. You literally had to climb up a bunch of stairs.
Yeah, it didn't feel as long as the remake, honestly. Like, I felt tired after that.
It honestly didn't feel that long to me. Honestly, I don't even think I had to climb the stairs.
Wait, what?
Yeah, I'm pretty sure there was a way for you to not climb the stairs.
You're telling me I just took the hard way up for no reason?
Yeah, pretty much.
Ugh.
So, good job. You're 0-2 right now. You mistook Shinra bodyguards for soldiers, and now you realize you didn't actually have to climb the stairs. So good job there.
Man, I'll say it right now. I never claimed to know everything about this game.
Neither do I, but Jesus. Wow, dude. But
one thing I did like though in this remake was in the original all it was all text. So hearing like the voice actors bring these characters to life in their own way was really nice to see, especially Red 13's voice. I feel like his actor really made me connect with that character more.
Well, the thing is, again, I'm going to stop you right there. If you had watched Final Fantasy VII Advent Children, which was one of the first movies made for this game, they already had a similar voice actor for Red 13. So it wasn't really that, for me personally, it wasn't that big of a surprise hearing that voice. What surprised me was how they introduced Red 13. Because again, in the original, it was so creepy.
Oh no.
Because they had Aerith and Red 13 in the same pod. And if I'm remembering correctly, Dr. Hojo had some really weird sadistic experiment in plan for Aerith and Red 13 together. I'm not going to specify anything. But Red 13 and Aerith were in the same pod. And I like how they kind of got rid of that whole scene together because I'm pretty sure they realized, this is a little weird.
It was very awkward, to say the
I
least.
was uncomfortable with that, but
Oh, while we're on the topic of Hojo, he was really creepy in this game. Like, the actor did a good job of making me like hate this character.
yeah, no, he's creepy in all the games. He was creepy in the original 7. He was creepy in Crisis Core. Was he in Dirge of Cerberus? I can't really remember.
Again,
Vincent,
I never heard his voice, so this was like something that really solidified. Yeah, I don't like this character.
yeah, he was. Yeah, he was. They did him right in the sense that you don't like him, and then
Which is the whole point of like playing a character. If you're gonna get involved in bringing this character to life, you have to essentially make a persona for that character.
yeah, and they did a pretty good job with that. All in all, I don't think it was too difficult for them to mess this up because they already had the skeleton story from the original back in the 90s. So it wasn't too difficult for them to mess up the story. It was just a question of how they implemented the new content in the remake. And for what it is, I think they did a pretty good job. Certain new characters that they fleshed out a bit more, I didn't particularly care for. Me personally, I didn't really care for Jessie.
Which is really weird because it almost felt as though they were pushing as her to be another love interest.
You could have just said waifu, you're fine. I know you wanted to.
I really did. But no, I mean, I was playing the game, I'm just like, oh man, she is actually like my type. It's so bad though that she's not gonna live because I played the original.
Yeah. And well, again, she didn't live. But Biggs lived.
Yeah, that was kind of weird.
That was. I did not expect to see him in the hospital bed.
Wait, did they ever? Is it clarified that Witch died?
No, of course it wasn't clarified because you just saw the whispers grab him and it fades to black and you hear him say, "Please let me believe I made a difference, or tell me I at least made a difference," something like that.
But they killed off Jesse, man.
They killed off Jessie. I mean, she died in the original, so.
I mean, those two did as well.
One thing I thought was interesting was in chapter 18, when you're fighting that giant whisper or whatever he was called. I can't particularly remember what he was called, but the final boss, or the second to last boss, I thought it was really
called Harbinger of Fate.
Harbinger of Fate, something like that. I thought it was really interesting how they had these quick flashbacks for each character of very iconic moments from the original, and now they have a chance to alter their future with those flashbacks. Cloud can save someone from dying. I don't want to say too much.
Yeah.
But they have these mini flashbacks of potential futures, and now they have a chance to stop those potential futures. So I'm really curious what part 2 of the FF7 remake is going to have. It might be really, really good, or they might do some serious bullshit that'll trigger fans. I have a bad feeling that they'll do something different, and different in a bad way.
I mean, all in all, this game was well made. The cinematics were beautiful. The music was great. Character designs were just so good for me, in my opinion, honestly.
No, I liked some of the designs. I liked Cloud's design, obviously iconic. I liked Barrett's. Tifa's was cool. Aerith's, they stuck true to the original. I liked Reno. I liked Rude. I was indifferent about President Shinra. Not Rufus. I'm talking about his father.
Yeah.
I was just, okay, yeah, I can see that. And then Rufus Shinra, he was the only one where I understood why they designed him like that, because it would appeal to a much larger audience. For me personally, he looked way too childish with those pants.
Anime mullet.
An anime mullet. I'm freaking telling you. That is an anime mullet. But aesthetically, everything I really did like. There was one section when it's just you, or sorry, not you, it's Cloud and Aerith together, and they're trying to get to Wall Market, or they're trying to find Tifa. I hated that one section where you had to do the puzzles with the mechanical arms. I thought that was so unnecessary. I didn't think it
exactly what
was.
you're talking about.
I didn't think it was as boring as chapter 15 and 16, but I thought it was so unnecessary. I'm so sick of certain games having excess padding. I personally don't have a problem if a game is under 30 hours. If it's 26 hours, I'm totally fine with that. In fact, Mortal Shell, which I did a review for just the last week, that was only 12 hours long. My whole idea about in video game enjoyment is I'd rather enjoy the full 12 hours of one game rather than only enjoying 3 hours of a 60-hour game.
I will say the only complaint I had about this game, as far as like mechanics go, combat. I didn't like how you didn't really have an option of summoning what do they call it again? The summons.
Literally the summons, man.
Yeah, I don't know. Like I didn't like how it was all random, and you had to get to a certain point where it's like, okay, yeah, you need the summon, but you didn't get to choose which summon you like Kate would come out at the time. So for me, like that was a bit of a letdown because I personally love seeing certain summons come out more than most.
I'm pretty sure you had the option to pick your summon.
If there was, I've never found one because every time I was in a fight, the only like options I would have at the time, and I had all the materia equipped for each character I had on that team for different summons. The only one that would keep popping up was that freaking fat chocobo.
Really? Around chapter 18, or chapter 17 to 18, whenever you were allowed to summon, I don't think it was a glitch, but I was able to summon either Ifrit or Shiva, who I think was equipped to Tifa, or any of the other summons.
Man, then you got extremely lucky because all I got was that fat chocobo, either that or the chick chocobo, and I got Ifrit like maybe like a few handful of times throughout the game.
What about Shiva? You want to
Shiva-
mention how much fun you had with Shiva during the simulation?
Man, the simulation was a whole nother thing for me. I don't know about like you personally. I don't know about anybody else, but that fight was the biggest struggle in that entire game for me. Don't know why it happened. I struggled so much with that fight. Took me roughly about an hour and a half to beat her.
Yeah, that's bad.
Yeah.
That fight only takes maybe 5 minutes.
Believe me, I know that's bad because after that, and you get to fight the fat chocobo, and I got that in my first try, and it took me like less than 10 minutes.
That was Jesus, an hour just to beat Shiva.
Yeah, I don't know what it was. Maybe I went in like too under leveled or like unprepared. I didn't have the right materia equipped. I didn't have the right like rolls on my weapons. Like, I didn't upgrade them correctly. But my damage output was so low to the point where it's like I was literally just running back and forth, going in, taking a swipe, running away, blocking, trying not to get one-shotted by her.
Wow. 10 out of 10, buddy. 10 out of 10.
Was not a good time for me at that time, at least.
I got really lucky. I never saw the game over screen for this game, but I don't think it was designed to be overtly challenging. Throughout the game, I only had to use the revival item, Phoenix Down, maybe 3-4 times, just because certain teammates just got completely screwed over for me.
I mean, after that fight, I never had to use items again, simply because of the materials that were just like a little overpowered, in my opinion.
Some materials were a little overpowered. I can't think of any off the top of my head, but yeah, all in all, it was a really solid game. It wasn't, the beginning really had that wow factor for me, but the most memorable things for me personally were near the end.
The thing that's always going to stick with me is the really cool motorcycle fight in cinematics. Really well done.
Cinematics were really cool. Hopefully we'll get a chance to use some of those cinematics.
Oh, man. Just seeing the lightning strike right before, like, it's about to hit you, but you're fighting the guy at the same time.
Yeah. And I will say this, though, before we end things off, going back to that whole Cloud is not a soldier thing, The cool thing about the original Final Fantasy VII is that they gave you almost no inclination to believe that he is not telling the truth. They handled his story so well in the original version where once you get to this 3 and you find out the truth about Cloud, it completely messes with your head. Because it's the first time ever you feel as if, wow, you're playing a game where the protagonist, the main person's perspective that you're playing as, is lying to you, the player. It was a crazy feeling back then. Because usually when you play video games, you play as this one person and you follow his perspective, and you believe that his perspective is the definitive truth to handle the rest of the story. And back then, in the original version, they completely flip the tables on you. You find out Cloud is actually kind of insane in that he hasn't been telling the truth at all. In fact, he doesn't even know the truth. And I loved that about the original version. And in the remake, they make it way, way, way too obvious that Cloud has something wrong with him. Maybe they did it because they kind of already knew this game is 2 decades old. People already know the story.
Most people.
Or maybe they believe, it's okay. We'll egg them on a little bit. We'll give them a little push so they don't get too surprised when you find out Cloud is completely full of it.
Man, that to me just felt like they told me Santa's not real.
That's like telling you Santa's not real. Yeah, it was crazy when I played it when I was younger because you just don't expect it. You haven't had a story have that sort of risk factor where you're like, you're playing as the character, and then all of a sudden the character's not at all what you thought he was. But this is all you know is this character's perspective and how he goes about his challenges throughout the story. And I was like, that's genius. And now in the remake, everyone just knows, oh yeah, Cloud's not actually a soldier. So it's, visually and aesthetically love it. In terms of the new story direction, I'm going to say I like it just because Zack Fair isn't dead. Zack is not dead. That is the main reason why I like it. But I'm going to hold off until I see the next 2 parts of the Final Fantasy VII Remake be released before I say that the story's good. Yeah. So visually amazing story. I like certain parts, but I'm going to wait until the new ending comes out for this remake. And what about you?
Honestly, can't wait to see how they continue this, considering it's a whole new story for myself.
Yeah.
I really like the way they ended off. I would say this chapter of it.
Yeah. Screw it. If you had to give this game a rating, what would you rate it?
Me personally, I would give it at least a 6 out of 10.
6? Why that low?
I mean, there are some things that I felt like was a little dragged on. It took out the enjoyment from the game for me personally. I would have given it a 7, but just the last few chapters really just, again, it made me feel as though I was doing a chore, which is not something I do to play. I want to have when I'm playing video games. I play video games to have fun, to enjoy the story, not to be told, hey, do all this, and then completely forget about what the story's going on.
No, I get it. I personally wouldn't have rated it as a 6, but I'll let you be in charge of the numerical score. I'll just give it a verbal score. Me personally, I'd say it was decent to definitely above average. I really liked the risks that they took. I liked the idea of making a remake of an iconic title, but not just remaking the visuals, but remaking the story. I loved that. Same with me. Certain chapters, specifically 15, 16, it felt as if while I was sitting down playing those 2 chapters, it felt as if my body was burning up from just sheer boredom, and I had to just walk away. I just could not deal with those really dumb side quests. But no, yeah, it's overall, it's a solid, really good game.
I'm gonna have to stick with my 6 out of 10.
That's fine. I didn't give a numerical rating. I just gave it verbal. So, a little too late. Final Fantasy VII Remake. We talked about it. Have a good night, guys.
Good night.
Hey everyone, I really hope you guys enjoyed our discussion on Final Fantasy VII Remake. If you did, please share with us your own personal opinions, and we really hope that you'll join us again for the next discussion for whatever game it might be. Luckily, with an idea like this, there's no timestamp, and we have decades worth of games that we can talk about. Also, be sure to watch our Gamer Positivity online book videos. We really love that and think it can help people realize the potential in themselves. Also, be sure to watch our reviews or even some of our Let's Plays of Where Am I? Alright, you guys have a good night. Bye.